Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is new frontiers and how, if we have a willingness to not know in any given moment, we open the possibility for vast new awareness. So good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to be with you this Friday. And welcome to everybody else who's joining us. Great to be here with you. We're talking about new frontiers and being willing to not know in order to invite new possibility. But before we get started, let's take a couple minutes to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. Now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine clean, crisp oxygen and brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating all your cells, all your electrons, your molecules, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, and fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub those palms together, feel the friction, the temperature, the resistance. And then when you stop, feel the buzzing. Allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome. Lisa, so good to have you here with us this morning. Great to be celebrating this Friday together. So today we're talking about new frontiers and how we can open ourselves to be experiencing new and potentially revelatory moments where life can transform in the blink of an eye, where our perspectives can radically shift and open up new possibilities. Oftentimes these massive transformations of awareness happen through crisis. I know I've shared with you that I'm reading a book called called Einstein and the Rabbi, and it's about a letter that a rabbi had written to Einstein, and Einstein. It's really more about Einstein's response to the letter from the rabbi. And the book is written by a rabbi who was so intrigued by the letter that she went on a mission really to discover what was behind it and all the stories that emerged in that investigation. But she told a story about this woman who LA, everything is she was very absorbed in her life. She took her kids to school, went to the gym, was very social, kind of on top of the world, not particularly self-aware, maybe we might say. I don't know, just sort of stereotypic. And then one day she was looking at a text on her phone while she was driving, or she went to reach for her phone and she hit someone, and that someone ended up dying. And this was a life-changing event. It happened in a split moment. And it transformed her life. And in many, many ways, and in many, many ways woke her up, and gave her more of a mission and a purpose. And that in its own way, she was able, after years, to have reconciliation with his family, and it was a beautiful thing coming from this tragedy. But what I'm wanting to talk about today is that we can have these radical transformations without having to have tragedy to incite them, and that we have the ability to be allowing ourselves to step into circumstances and put our preconceptions by the way. And so another incentive or impulse for this conversation comes from our movie night last night, where we had this lovely, brilliant woman named Lauren Tucker on. She's one of the co-founders of Kiss the Ground, and now she has a new initiative called Renourish Studios, and it's all about rethinking business, but particularly the food system and how we do business, and looking at really coming into these circumstances of trying to build bridges, coming into these circumstances with beginner's mind. And that's really where possibility resides. She's very active in the regenerative farming arena, and is working with cotton farmers and almond farmers. And rather than walking into circumstances with these people who are doing things that we might consider from the outside heinous, like spraying their crops with chemicals, to come in from a beginner's mind place to say, hey, I don't know anything about your business. I don't, suspending all these judgments that are so easy to make from the outside in, when we're not understanding what the dynamics are of how people are functioning, how they're making their decisions, what their lives are like, what is influencing their trade or their experience. And if we are able to generate this notion, this not notion, but this context of beginner's mind, of a willingness to explore and discover, rather than the determination that we know, the righteousness that we know what's good, we know what's bad, we know what's right, we know what's wrong, and to create a dialogue instead that comes from a true curiosity and interest. And I think that this is such an important conversation to have in this time where we've become so factionalized and polarized, and where we have othered others so profoundly, even in our meaning well, right? It's so easy to judge what we don't know, right? When we humanize our interactions, when we humanize others, and cultivate compassion for our difference and our humanity, first our humanity and then our difference. It takes a lot of courage to be willing to challenge your own beliefs and stances and our own righteousness, right? You know, like, I know I'm right. Well, as long as I know I'm right, then I'm making somebody wrong. And then there's no bridge, there's no real potential for a bridge of communication. If I'm just trying to enforce my will and convince somebody of my vantage point, that's not really going to get us very far, right? Because what's going to happen is that my trying to overpower, dominate, transform, or to assert my will over someone else is not being respectful of their perspective. It's not really giving an opportunity to engage in dialogue. And the thing is that I definitely have suffered from being right and made other people suffer from my being right in my life quite a lot. And I'm guessing I'm not alone in that, you know, but you know, it's like, here are all the facts, here are all the figures, I can justify this, here's the research. I mean, and so what? You know, if we're still polarized, if we're still in opposition, if we're not able to find a way to bridge those differences, we've got a problem, right? And I'm not saying I know how. And it occurs to me that having a willingness to listen, having a willingness to forge new frontiers, to be in the question rather than the answer, may hold a key for us. You know, may hold a key for us to come to a whole new place of awareness that wouldn't otherwise be available to us if we're sitting in this polarity of right and wrong and otherness. So good morning, Robin. So good to have you back with us. Welcome. And Rosalind says, the call may be set against a backdrop of challenge. How long you can stay out of the storm without getting wounded more than you already are, knowing it's time for a new approach. Yes, it is a challenge, 100%, to get outside ourselves enough to be able to truly engage. And it is a huge challenge to deal with our own woundedness, you know, our own fear, our own pain, our own rage, and to find a way into greater community, communion, connection, communication, right? That communication isn't me telling you what to do. Communication isn't even me necessarily inviting you to do something different, but communication in its deepest form is a form of communion where we're sharing authentically, where there's room for us each to be and potentially then emerge collectively as something greater than the sum of the parts. So Robin, we're talking about new frontiers, and what does it look like to be willing, even on a personal basis, and this isn't even talking about communication with others, but what does it mean to be able, we've talked about new beginnings, to sort of bring ourselves a sense and experience of renewal and possibility. How do we invoke possibility in our lives? Part of it is by enabling ourselves to start fresh, to be present to opportunity from a beginner's mind without our profound preconceptions. And that's an interesting thing in itself, because recognizing our preconceptions is something that isn't necessarily a readily accessible capacity, because they're preconceptions. We're so deeply entrenched, we're so deeply immersed in our beliefs. So one way that we could be challenging our preconceptions to try to reach a broader understanding would be to get out of the echo chambers that we're in. We tend to surround ourselves with ideas and people and circumstances that reinforce our own beliefs and our own predispositions. And I think that there's certainly some merit to that, in that it provides comfort and community and all of that. And so I'm not saying that that's something that we need to remove entirely. However, it can be very eye-opening to expose ourselves to ideas and perspectives that we don't hold in common. And it was interesting, yesterday or Wednesday, I watched a video that was from a guy who used to work with the CIA and has all these credentials, security and whatever. And he was talking about an executive order that Biden had put through that was around researching crypto and digital currency, and investigating the viability and the practicality and the mechanics of a digital currency, from a US digital currency. And it was so interesting. I mean, it was really quite polarizing from the perspective that I hold, but it was so interesting to witness this other perspective. I'm going to call it propaganda, but there's propaganda on all sides. So but what it was capitalizing on was a deep fear, and as I was listening to it, it was challenging me to recognize the underlying assumptions that were held by this guy, and in recognizing his underlying assumptions, it made my underlying assumptions more visible as well to me. So it was very interesting. It was a really interesting exercise, because while I could stand back and say, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous, this is appalling, and have all my judgments based on my perspective and my being right, instead to be able to look at that and say, oh my gosh, what must this person be experiencing and thinking if indeed they believe that what they're saying is true? And we have so many occasions to be looking at things and thinking about things in this way these days because of the factionalization and because of the polarity. And I'm wondering if there's a way for us to be able to bridge those differences. And those are new frontiers, right? So, and then another example, to go back to the story I told from the book, Einstein and the Rabbi, about this woman that ended up killing this man with her car because she was busy looking at her or trying to get her cell phone. It's interesting how such a seemingly benign action can have such dire consequences. But in any case, after 3.5 years, finally, the family was willing to meet with her, the family who had lost the father, the husband. And it was a healing moment for both sides, or both groups, because she was able to express her deep remorse and sorrow, and they were able to experience her humanity and express their grief, and there was a reconciliation. And I've heard of such reconciliations between people who have perpetrated crimes and the victims of those crimes. I've heard the same thing in the Middle East, where Arabs and Israelis would get together and find ways to create bridges of peace. And this is a time. Oh, sorry, we lost you there for a little bit, Robin. Welcome back. This is a time that calls us to a higher level of being. So Dido, welcome. Good morning. So good to have you here with us. Dido says it sounds like personal restorative justice. I wish I had had that after my mom was killed by a hit and run driver. Yes. Oh my gosh, Dido, I just got chills. So what a healing opportunity that may have been. And maybe that's an exercise to be able to create for yourself, would be to imagine that encounter. You know, this restorative justice the grief and the despair and the disruption and the horror of that experience, Dido, I know it's been life-shaping for you in so many ways, and to have been able to have a gift to find that kind of reconciliation, that kind of restoration. I see there's so much power in that. And I think that like bringing others, people we have othered, and us being people other people have othered, bringing others to a common table to be able to experience our humanity together may bring us to a place where we can find new pathways that would be otherwise unimaginable, new pathways that are representative of our highest self, our higher expression, our humanity, our love, our compassion. You know, it's interesting. I've had discussions with a friend around the right to choose and anti-abortion perspectives. And it's so fascinating because the truth is we're very closely aligned, although we identify with different poles of this conversation and argument. And our foundational beliefs are very deeply aligned. And still, even with our highest intentions and our awareness of this similarity, we couldn't find a place to rest with the whole polarizing impact of all of it. And I think it's because we invest ourselves so deeply emotionally in our positions, our sense of what is right and what is not. And this is where the importance of intention rather than outcome matters. Well, I've talked about that a lot. But if we have an intention to find peace and connection, to find humane and caring, kind kindness in our expression on this planet, and inclusion and whatever, if we can have an intention, then the outcomes are just byproducts, and the intention can still exist in the face of any result. The intention can still be driving possibility. So Rosalind says, New Frontiers brings up struggle with bringing dreams into reality. What areas need your focus and care? Re-examine your relationship. Think about what you want to plant, what you wish to plant. All it takes is for the first block to be placed. Nothing gets built without action. Painting a room to make it into a healing place. The seed only grows into a tree because it was planted. So plant something new today. Muffle out what is unimportant is helping me to focus. So Rosalind, so much packed into that that reflection there. Thank you for that. So yes, we get to be re-examining. And the thing is that struggle brings up the notion of resistance to me. You know, and so yes, we meet resistance, and we interact with it in whatever ways we do. I think that there are ways that we've all been able to experience of dissolving resistance. But when we face resistance, also, this is really important. A plant without resistance doesn't get strong. So I was growing microgreens, and one of the things they said to do is to put this other tray on top of the tray of microgreens so that the plants had to push against that in order to get their strength. So the resistance that we experience in that struggle is something that is serving to make us stronger, to make us more resilient. Because without that, we like a sapling without the wind to create resistance, without those outside influences, then the strength and resilience wouldn't be there. And I love that you say, think about what you want to plant, what you wish to plant. And the seed only grows into a tree because it was planted. So plant something new today. It's a beautiful way to end our morning, and to put an exclamation point on the week. Plant something new today and open yourselves to something new. We can all do that. You know, to step outside this dogged knowing that we have that makes us right and righteous. And, you know, I'm as guilty of that as the next person. And so when we allow for not knowing, that opens up vast new frontiers of possibility in relationship to ourselves and the world and others. So with that, I'm going to wrap for the week. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out all the other wonderful programming from Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living and EWN One with the Earth, all those Facebook pages. And I want to just let you know again and again and again how deeply I appreciate your participation, your presence, your heart and soul being part of these conversations, and also to reaffirm what a gift you are to me. And I'm so deeply grateful. So I wish you a wonderful, wonderful weekend of possibility.